So let's be absolutely honest. No one on YouTube likes long intros, so let's get into it. So the Sony ZVe10, not even the ZVe10 Mark II, absolutely revolutionized content creation. You see, when this camera came out, it blew the world away with its capacity and the quality that it actually produced. But how does that stack up in 2026? Now, I've had this camera for some time. In fact, one of my great mates, Paulie, gave me this camera with the Sony 15mm f1.4. And together that is an absolutely dynamite combo. So the idea of this video is to dive back into the Sony ZVe10 and see, does it stack up in 2026? As a budget option, it was absolutely fantastic back in its day, but technology has advanced so far and so quickly, is it still worth buying one now? And one of the massive advantages that these cameras have over an iPhone or an action camera or a DJI OP3 is that they have interchangeable lenses. You can use multiple different focal lengths, you can shoot sports photography, you can go out on the golf course and you can shoot something like that, and you can have a zoom lens that actually gives you that focal range that a lot of those other options for vlogging don't. For example, I have the very cheap 55 to 210mm Sony lens. Now this is not a constant aperture. A constant aperture means that it might stay at an f-stop of 2.8 right through the whole focal range, but this one starts at f4.5 going up to f6.3. So as I zoom this lens out, it's actually going to change that aperture as it gets further down the line into that 200mm focal range. And I personally bought this lens just to see if a cheap budget lens can produce these professional style results. I went down to the train station and took some photos, and these came up incredibly well. One of the things that I love doing, especially with the Sony ZVe10, is I love getting creative with my photos. I love adding different filters to them. I love color grading them in different ways. I love adding grain into the photos. So the grain that you're seeing is not natural grain. The grain that you're seeing has actually been added into these photos to give a certain effect. And what that effect does is it puts the photo and the image in a place and time. A photo is said to be worth 1,000 words, and it can actually take us back nostalgically to things that we might have done or seen before previously, or give a sort of certain feel. For example, this photo that I took here was on the 15mm f1.4 lens, and I feel like it actually takes us back in time and years to maybe the 1980s when we go down the pier and we see the boats. We might have some fish and chips. It's a beautiful sunny day on the Gold Coast, even though I took it right here in 2025 going into 2026. So getting creative with your photos when you're using a camera like this will be a massive help. If you are trying to go a little bit cheaper on the camera body and get the ZVe10 instead of the ZVe10 Mark II, then I would definitely recommend spending some extra cash on the lenses. So I have the Sigma 17 to 40mm f1.8 here. This is a constant aperture, so not like what we were talking about before. This constant aperture goes right through the whole focal range from 17mm to 40mm. It can stay at 1.8 if I want it to. It also has an internal zoom, which means that if I want to put this on a gimbal, I don't have to rebalance it every time I'm changing a focal range, which is a huge bonus. Also, what you're going to get with a lens like this is you're definitely going to get a step up in quality. So the step up in quality of the image, if you want to spend money on something, Jared Pollan always says on his videos, make sure you spend the money on glass. Buy glass, glass, glass. He says that so much. And what that will do is that will enhance the photo quality of your image, give you much better depth of field, and an overall better video image quality as well, probably more so than anything else. And finally, on photography, if you do decide to go down this route, then I would encourage you to be a little bit more creative. Play with the shutter speeds, get ND filters, and you can do things like this, where I've gone outside here and I've gone a slow shutter speed to get a little bit more of a water effect on my outside water fountain, and it really does look quite cool. Of course, these are all examples of photos that you can get with people in them, with construction, with landscapes, with, putting things into a place and time to create a feel, as well as adding that little bit of creativity flair. But what about video? Because the photo quality of this, I believe, is sensational, even for, what is it now, like a 5-year-old camera, maybe a little bit more, but it is sensational. When you go into video, that's a little bit different. I am filming everything here in S-Log2. S-Log2 is a flat picture profile that will allow me to be a little bit more creative with the colors, adding some blues and some warm tones here in the studio to give you guys a little bit more of that better image quality. You of course can film in a standard picture profile, however for 8-bit cameras, S-Log2 really does make a benefit for you. Of course, when you get started, you can use a standard picture profile, have everything in automatic, and you will still get really good video quality. However, if you're looking to be a little bit more creative, you're creating YouTube videos, you want to have different color filters and things like that and do some color grading, then you're definitely going to want to know what S-Log2 is all about. Go get yourself some understanding through YouTube. There's so many tutorials on how to use it, and especially in using zebras. If you use zebras in the right way with the Sony ZVe10 as an 8-bit camera, using S-Log2, you really get fantastic results out of it like this. I mean, how cool is that? If you asked me whether that's an 8-bit camera or a 10-bit camera and I didn't know what I filmed on, I wouldn't know. I would be completely guessing. And I mean, there is a buzzword around 10-bit cameras because it does provide a pretty big advantage when you're color grading. However, the guys who are going to be using the 10-bit cameras and wanting to really push and pull their colors a lot are generally a lot more advanced and probably aren't looking for that budget style camera. If you're looking for something just to get you started, an 8-bit camera is fine. It will give you really great quality. Learn how to use S-Log2 and you can still do some creative color grading. The next thing is probably my favorite Sony lens for the ZVe10, and that is the 11mm f1.8 lens. A lot of people, when they use the ZVe10, are going to be vlogging. They're going to be taking it out. They want to see what their life's about. They want to start their creative journey with something that doesn't break the bank but gives them a really high image quality. That is definitely this lens. So the 11mm f1.8 for vlogging. Let's go and do some vlogging ourselves and check it out. Alright, so now to the vlogging part of today, where I have the ZVe10 on with the 11mm f1.8 Sony lens, and I also have the ECM mic, which is a small cheap one, on top. So let's get into this little vlogging thing. As you can see, I've got it on a gimbal, so it's also nice and smooth. But what does happen, you might see it in the top corner here, is that when I have the 11mm lens on with an ND filter, because the 11mm lens is so wide, it does actually have some of that shadowing in the corner, like a vignetting, which to get away from that, you just simply add the active stabilization, even though you got it on the gimbal, and it will punch in a little bit. Or if you have the 15mm lens, then of course you could just use that. But the 11mm lens is a fantastic lens for vlogging.
That is very warm.
Alright, so now this is on the Mini 4 gimbal, and this can actually follow me around and track it with that little DJI tracker thing. Let's jump in the pool.
Oh my god, Daddy! How did you do that?
That actually does a really good job of tracking me. It seems like it's still
Daddy, look!
actually on me now.
Daddy!
Boom. Alright, so now the kids are all inside and I'm going to go and jump in the ice bath. We can see that we've got some beautiful palms back here, so we're going to be able to get to see the dynamic range of the Sony ZVe10 as well with this 11mm f1.8. So let's jump in and let's see how we go. That's cool. I mean, how good was that, guys? If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we have plenty more content coming on the Sony ZVe10 and other cameras like the A6700 and you name it. We got loads coming. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, throw anything into the comment section. I'll get back to every single comment in there, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Cheers, guys.